And we are here. We are back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Top Rope Talk. Looking to hear my new music here. Okay, yeah, we'll roll with this one. Cool. So I am Chapter 6 Denzel Snipes himself, and along with the numbers guy, Sean Russey. Shout out to Tyler Sumner. He's got the night off of enjoying a birthday celebration. He'll be back with us next week with Tyler's 5 count and everything. You can go ahead and get these pants rolling, man. So just want to remind everybody that if you're watching us from YouTube, to hit that like and subscribe button, follow us for all, hit the notification bell for all updates and new episodes. We also are on all of our social medias. We're on TikTok. We got a 2-for-1 special on TikTok. We're also on Instagram, X, and Facebook as well. And we have our website, sideline-se.com, with all of our great articles and footage from live events as well. With that being said, got a pretty stacked show. Sean, how you doing tonight, man?
No, everything's going good, man. How are you?
Everything's pretty good, pretty good. So with that being said, we can go ahead and get right into it. So what an event we had this past Sunday. For those of you all who saw it Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Oh, speaking of times, let me just announce to everybody right now, okay? Top Rope Talk from now on will go on at 7 p.m. Eastern instead of 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I know, and we've had shows before where, you know, we will go on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, but then for recap shows, we go on at 7 Eastern because it was a longer show or whatever. We're going to now go on for at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, you can expect recap shows to just about go an hour, maybe 30 minutes, and then for regular shows, 30 minutes full. But new time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, let's go ahead and get right to this Clash in Italy recap show. Hey, so we started off with a bang, and not a bad one to boot. So Cody Rhodes, as I predicted in my article, was going to stun Gunther and win. But here's the deal. He won in controversial fashion. For those of y'all who saw it, or who didn't see it, Cody Rhodes hit the crossroads, and then when he went for the pin, Gunther's foot was clearly under the bottom rope. The referee didn't see it as he was on the other side. Cody Rhodes readjusted his pin in mid-pin that put Gunther's feet up and no longer under the rope, but the count should have been stopped. Sean, your thoughts about this, man? Do you have a case for being screwed over?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did this for a couple of reasons. One, it protects Gunther, so it wasn't a clean loss per se. But obviously, it also sets up a reason to have a rematch, whether it's at Night of Champions. Obviously, we know King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring will finish up there. So Cody could have to defend the belt, there before it's decided who the SummerSlam challenger is. Or if they extend this out, because I think does Money in the Bank come up before SummerSlam? Yes. Or are they doing it? Yeah, so you've got Money in the Bank coming up as well, and then you've got, SummerSlam. So it'll be interesting to see where Gunther wants to pick his spot, because it does look like SummerSlam is stacking up, again, to be a great card on paper. It's similar to Mania. You're going to have a lot of third matches, it looks like. Cody Rhodes versus Gunther will be for, I believe this is the third time now. Cody's 2-0 versus him right now. And then you've got probably the Beast and Oba, who are 1-1. And then down the line, which was teased, and we'll talk about more of this later, as Reigns was walking backstage, and they showed this on WWE's website, him and Cody had a little interaction there, and they're 1-1. So it'll be very interesting to see where they go with these rivalries. And we'll talk more about, Oba and Brock here in a second, because, I think they've put themselves in a tough spot with what they did there. But I do think what this does is it opens up the door for what you said, is for Seth Rollins to be the challenger for Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. I don't think Seth wins the belt at SummerSlam. I think he's going to still be involved in some Vision stuff that's going to get involved in that. And I think because of what we've seen here with Reigns, I think Reigns is finally going to get one clean win, the way he got two, no-help wins versus Fatu and a no-help win versus Punk. I think we're going to continue that way with his title reign until we get closer to Mania. But I do think that sets you up for Rollins, Reigns, Gunther, Cody, Brock, Oba, you've got a hell of a card, and that doesn't even stack where you possibly put CM Punk in this mix. Braun Breaker, maybe a returning Bronson Reed. They've got a lot of pieces still in play for SummerSlam.
There is, absolutely, and one thing with Cody Rhodes versus Gunther is there has to be a rematch on the card because of how it finished. You know, I had a feeling that Cody was going to win it because I was like, well, I don't see them taking the belt off Cody. Now, Cody will not be the champion past SummerSlam, and I do think it's going to be Gunther who takes it off of him. You know. With that being said, and I'll go more into that take when we do our predictions for King and Queen of the Ring, but yeah, it was a great match. It really was a great match. Cody Rhodes hung in there for a second. It looked like Gunther might just walk out of Italy with the championship. I actually expected a Gunther heavier crowd, seeing as he's from Austria, and Austria is just above Italy, you know. But first of all, that I'm about ready to concede and say 50% of the shows, Monday Night Raws, SmackDowns, premium live events need to be overseas because those crowds are phenomenal. And as someone who's been stationed overseas, it came as no shocking surprise. It's a soccer game atmosphere, you know. So yeah, crowds in the United States, I'm gonna need you to step it up. But as you can see, Cody Rhodes retains the WWE Championship. We think a rematch is in the card somewhere. It just depends on when. We'll find out this Friday night on SmackDown where they go from here. Now, let's move on to our WWE Women's Championship. So, Rhea Ripley, who got a hefty assist from one Charlotte Flair, defeated Jade Cargill and retained her Women's Championship in their WrestleMania 42 rematch. So let me ask you, Sean. So now should Jade Cargill be in Ripley's rearview mirror?
I mean, I think it's, again, one of these things where you can kind of put a fork in it, at least till SummerSlam, where you can kind of marinate it for a bit, where we know it wasn't necessarily a clean victory for either one, no matter who came out on top, because you had interference on both sides. Obviously, Charlotte came out to thwart the attempt of Jade's group to steal the title from Rhea. But I think it's one of those things where it's just not going to be at Night of Champions. There's no reason to run it back a third time so quickly. But I think you could see where, you know, because Jade is now in the Queen of the Ring. She's actually in the Fatal 4-Way match with Charlotte. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, who comes out of that, because I could see Jade getting another shot at SummerSlam. You know, but again, you're reaching this point of how many third matches do you want on that SummerSlam card?
Yeah. I think for this one right here, because you would think that Cargill, you know, could be one of the favorites to win Queen of the Ring, and we'll get to that in just a minute. It was a good match. It was a good match. I think their match at 42 might have been a little bit better, but still great nonetheless. Also, at the same time, at what point does let me ask you a question. At what point does Jade Cargill break away from Meechin and B-Fab? Because they haven't proven to be very effective alongside Jade Cargill.
No, and it seems like more or less they don't really know what to do with the other two. And it's a way to keep them active on TV. I think eventually what you see is her group, you know, feuds with the new group that came up with it from NXT. You know, that would make sense to me as we lead deeper into the summer and towards Survivor Series and things like that. So I don't think it's going to break up anytime soon. It's definitely not really getting over great, but I don't think it's going anywhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only thing about you're talking about the JC James group that came up. The only thing about that is now you have to turn one of them face, and both of them are actually great heels. And if you're gonna keep it heel versus heel, you got to make it interesting enough to where it's like, okay, well, they're having.
I think
now.
it's kind of like the Wyatts versus the MFTs, where I guess you could say the Wyatts are a face, but in most other feuds, they're the heels. They do heel stuff. You know, the lights go off, they show up. The lights go off, they're gone. So, you know, it could be argued that they've done it. You know, and like you said, it's just how are they going to sell it? And do they get anybody else involved, or they just leave it as, you know, the 3-on-3 setup, or do just 4 of those members, you know, fight over the tag titles, and then you leave, you know, Jane and Cargill to do the 1-on-1?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, with with that, because that's not taking anything away from Meechin or B-Fab. I think both are actually great wrestlers and everything. It's just that at some point they got to strike out on their own and kind of be their own. You know what I mean? And it's so crazy. I've said the same thing about Dominic Mysterio. You know, we still have yet to see Dominic Mysterio on his own, but at the same time, I'm not ready to pull him away from Judgment Day.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, Judgment Day, and so granted, I think, and we're not going to touch on this because it's not Clash of Italy, but I think the mask versus mask match, when we look at it in December, is going to be one of the top 5 matches this year.
Yes,
but in terms of, Dom, this slow breakup / let's reiterate the Judgment Day. Like, I almost feel like Dom is now in a female group, which is fine, but like it feels like a female dominant, female led. Liv Morgan is the leader of the group, and I think that's bad. That's bad for Dom's character, and Dom's character literally has no reason to kind of pick at JD the way he picked at Damian and Finn. So I don't see that becoming an issue. So it's like, how do you get him away from this? Does he eventually just turn on Liv? Does Liv turn on him? How do you end up breaking this down? But I do think it's time to wrap it up. You're kind of like the mask versus mask. It was time to wrap up that story. It had gone on long enough. The Judgment Day is almost going on. When did they form? After Roman beat Edge at WrestleMania? Yeah. So you're talking 4 years ago, and we've seen now 3 reiterations of the Bloodline Solos group in that 4 years, and you still have the Judgment Day kind of floating around. And it's not like they're like the New Day. I feel like they're not super popular like the New Day were during their run, where you could justify keeping them together longer and longer. I don't see the justification of this anymore. I kind of lost it once you kicked Balor out. I was like, okay, it's time to end it.
That's it, yeah.
Even if it's Dom and Liv going their own way, and Roxanne and Raquel going their own way, and then JD is a singles star who we've seen can put on a great singles match. It's time to spread it out. I would even throw JD on the SmackDown roster.
Yeah, or shoot. And hear me out on this one. You can send them back down to NXT and have them be their top star for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, with the crossover that they typically do around the big shows, it would be a move they could do. But SmackDown's going to need some help. I think that's why we saw Punk made an appearance over there, earlier before he's taken this little hiatus. He's obviously going to be on SmackDown when he returns. But when you've got the Bloodline seemingly moving over to Raw, and it looks like now the MFTs are moving over to Raw, you've got a lot of movement, and you've got a lot of holes that are going to come up on SmackDown.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at some point in time, before the year is up, it is kind of time to split them up. I mean, I still think that they're, selling a lot of seats and everything like that.
Yeah, if we're still talking about the Judgment Day at WrestleMania 43, that better be the end of it, is at WrestleMania 43.
No, agreed. Now, one more thing before we continue, because you mentioned that it almost seems like an all... like a female group now, because there's 2 males and 3 females. So, with that being
usually
said,
it's just one or the other on screen. If you notice, JD and Dom are usually on screen together backstage, but when there's a match happening, it's usually one and then the 3 of them.
Yeah. The 3 females. Yeah, you know what I mean? So with that being said, like, it's almost like, what do you do from here? Do you recruit a new member? Now, here's a scenario for you, okay? Because I actually read an article that said it's almost like, even though he's one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, there's no direction for Damian Priest. And even suggesting that Priest should go heel again. What do you think about a Judgment Day return for Damian Priest?
No, only if it's about removing some of these other members. If it's about like JD leading a coup that leads to Priest, and JD leading a new form Judgment Day, I could be with that. Maybe JD, Priest, and Roxanne, and you get rid of actually Raquel as well, and you get rid of Dom and Liv, and that's how you get Dom and Liv on their own.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we mentioned the 2 behemoths. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So Femi Lesnar 2 turned out just how I thought it would be. Brock Lesnar defeated Obafemi in after a devastating onslaught by Brock Lesnar. So is this it, or will there be a rubber match? What do you think?
Well, I think, as soon as it started with the sneak attack, I was like, oh, we're going for 3 matches. You didn't even have to show me the pinfall as soon as Brock snuck up on him. as you know, especially as much as we watch, we know that's a way to protect Oba because you got snuck from the beginning versus having a clean start. My only issue with this is it took 7 F5s. You didn't have John Cena, you didn't have Roman Reigns, you didn't have The Undertaker need to take 7 F5s. So now what you've done here is you've made Oba more powerful, more unbeatable than Brock Lesnar, and the only person that can beat him right now is Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Because if you're Roman, what's it going to take? 5 spears and 4 Superman punches based on what we saw. So that was my only issue with it. Is it should have been over at 4. Make it an entire squash match. Don't have the little comeback by Oba. I know our co-host who's on vacation won't like that because one Oba lost, but he's not going to like that I suggested Oba get squashed. But I think that actually does. I think that actually does more protection for the character than having the character now take 7 F5s, and now you've got to have some unbelievable creative screw job to really have Oba lose.
Yeah, no,
and I think, and I know we're going to talk about this more. You've got Oba on one side of the King of the Ring, you've got Seth on the other side. I think that's where we're headed, and I think Brock cost Oba the spot. That's how you get to Brock Oba 3. That's how you get to Seth and Roman. But that's the only way you could have Oba lose.
Yeah. No, agree. And you know what? And this is the thing, okay? And I've actually said this like 10 years ago. You know, when you said with The Undertaker and Roman Reigns, and you know what I mean? Dude, for the better part of 20 years, the F5 had been the most devastating, if not top 3 devastating finishes in the league. Whenever you sit there and overuse it, you're cheapening the move. I don't care if he's a gatekeeper.
They didn't start having a multiple finish F5 until I believe he broke the Undertaker's streak, where it took 3 or maybe 4. I can't remember. And then you had the devastating Cena match, but Cena took dozens of suplexes, not dozens of F5s. You could actually go through a ton of matches and look and see guys take 6 to 10 suplexes and it be considered normal.
Yeah.
But my issue is the 7 F5s, especially. I think what the couple times he beat Roman, it was 3 or 4 F5s. It never got past 5. So it's like,
and even then, that was overkill.
And if Seth is gonna be, let's just say Seth is gonna possibly be Oba clean, if that's where we get to, if that's who ends up in the finals. So what does it take? 6 curb stomps and 3 pedigrees? Like, that's where you put yourself with Oba. Is my problem is you built him up almost too much last night, where you should have just squashed him. That would have been fine to tie it in a squash, because guess what? He squashed Lesnar at WrestleMania, so you're even. One squash to one squash. I don't think it hurts the character with the sneak attack. I think the 7 F5s does more damage to him moving forward.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's one of those things where you cheapen the move, and then like, I get it. Okay, he is Oba Femi. All right. 2 of them should have done it. Two of them should have done it. You know what I mean? And as far as a move like the F5, at max, I've always said at max it should take 2.
Or after the first little comeback where he hit the 3rd and 4th one, that should have been it. There should have been no power bomb reversal and hit a couple more. It should have been over within 5 minutes.
Yeah. And I get it, like, these are 2, 300-pound, near 300-pound men. I don't expect them to put on a 20-minute spectacle. It's going to be a quick match.
Total weight he lifted just in the 7 F5s, 2,000 pounds, just 300 pounds of Oba 7 times.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the match. It's just like, it was overkill. It really was. And absolutely, if you're going to put Oba through the table, it should have been done within the first 3 F5s.
And then you could just roll him in and be done. And no one would have said, that destroys his character, that destroys what he built up. That loss did not destroy what you built up at Oba. Not at all. Because the one person other than, I guess Roman and Gunther you can make an argument for. But other than Brock Lesnar, no one else on the roster has beaten Oba. So that loss doesn't hurt him. I think the way we've seen, X and others react today, media-wise, I don't think that loss hurts Oba the way that it's being portrayed.
It doesn't. It doesn't at all. And here's the thing. He may have lost to a gatekeeper, but that gatekeeper's Brock Lesnar. Remember,
and he's still going to get the official retirement in his feather come SummerSlam.
Yeah, And here's the thing. Even though he's 48, 49 years old, and like I said, he's at gatekeeper status, keep in mind, and I mentioned this in my article and on a past show, Brock Lesnar at this point in his career could still annihilate 90% of the roster.
Yep, and that's because that, even, when you got towards the end of The Undertaker, they started showing chinks, and that was kind of because he slowed down. You don't really see a whole lot of slowdown with Brock. Like, he's the same speed he was in the ring 20 years ago. He's methodical. So his pace doesn't look like he's lost a step even though he's older, because it's the same slow pace he had 20 years ago as a youngster.
Yeah, and he wasn't even slow at that. Because remember, we've seen guys his size. We just hadn't seen guys his size move that fast. And here's another point I'm going to bring to you, Sean. There's another reason why the 7 F5s was an overkill and they really didn't need to go that far. He went to the Kimura. 3 times in that match, he went to the Kimura.
No, and again, I think you've just, for later on, for down the road, when you do have Oba challenge for somebody, it's going to take a whole animal to take him, to not have him win that match. And it's one of those things where most of the guys where you build them up like this, they're heels. So is a heel turn now in Oba's future?
Yeah. I mean, I don't foresee it right. They'd be a fool to turn him heel right now.
No, it won't be soon. It'll be a long-term burn, but the way you've built him, just think about Gunther. You can't have Gunther as a face, and the way they're making Oba dominant, that's a typical heel that they have in terms of dominating.
Right. Yeah. It'd be hard. It'd be hard to picture Gunther as a face. I guess the only way Gunther would turn face is if Oba went heel.
Yeah, and you see, and like you said, the reaction, and I think that's just a credit to how good a heel Gunther is. So close to his home country and still booed out the building.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though the crowd sung his theme song also, but there's that too. But
yeah,
but they sung everybody's theme song.
They sing everybody up.
Yeah, Italy was lit. But we'll move on here to the one match I was wrong about. Sol Ruka in a shocker. Sean, take it away. I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah, I was surprised, but I guess not surprised, but kind of because we're on that, we just got the title back from AJ, really. And so, like we talked about last week, this is my concern with some of these undercard titles, is they think flipping it is the way to keep interest in them. And I just don't think that's the way to go. I really think, you want payoffs for every title when it comes to someone dethroning somebody. I understand there needs to be some shock finishes, right? And I feel like they looked at the card and they went, can't flip Cody, can't flip Roman, can't flip Rhea. Yeah, I guess Sol's going to have to be the new title winner on this card. And it's like, no, you could actually just had everybody hold their titles. And if anybody's upset about it, that's fine. But we're layering the story of, Sol got up the mountain, failed. Okay, let's let her climb the mountain again. And for me, again, it's different. I think it's different than Oba, because I think if Oba climbed the mountain this fast, a lot of people wouldn't have an issue with it in terms of winning the championship. But I think for Sol, you could see a lot of rawness in the ring, a lot of rawness on the mic, and I think that's the issue with it. But she is good. She's entertaining. I just think it was a little too soon. I think you could have had a whole series of matches the way Becky, had with Lyra. Last year when she originally came back, in terms of Becky at WrestleMania, you could have done a whole little series of matches to really, help Sol Ruka out, because I'm sure Becky gets a rematch, but now how many more times does Becky get rematches for the Intercontinental title, and do you actually put the strap back on her again?
Yeah, very true, very true. I mean, I get it. They needed an opponent for Becky Lynch, you know what I mean? I think Lynch is at this point where it's about putting other people over. Now, I know AJ Lee, was there before Lynch, essentially, and everything like that. She had her comeback. She won the belt. Okay, cool, But with Sol, now here's the thing, because some people will look at it, and I'm going to be the good cop in this one, in this equation. People will look at Sol Ruka, right? And Sol Ruka, she just got to the roster, the main roster. And in her, third match on the main roster, she wins it all, right? But keep in mind, Sol Ruka is a former NXT Women's North American Champion. She's a former WWE Women's Speed Champion. She's the first and only woman, if I'm not mistaken, to simultaneously hold both championships. So it's not like she was bad down in NXT.
Oh no, not at all. And I think it's kind of like, I look at Ricky Santos. He wasn't bad at NXT. I don't know what they're going to do with him on the main roster, but he wasn't bad for NXT. It's almost like did they get pulled up too soon, and they could have had some more seasoning.
Okay, then. Okay, interesting. Well,
but you're no denying her talent. I just think it was too quick to take the title off Becky. We just did the flip flop with AJ, in the last 6 months. You've got to build the prestige back up. Like they ran a whole package for the men's Intercontinental Championship for Penta and the prestige and who's held it and et cetera, et cetera. And I know the women's Intercontinental Championship is obviously newer, but let's build it up.
Yeah, and then also one thing that I would like to see is I would like to see more contenders at the same versus just these onesies here and there. Like, okay, the champion faces this woman, she beats her once or twice, retains the championship, and then we move on to another one, another one. What I would like to see is multiple contenders at the same time, like the men's Intercontinental title right now, because you figure Penta's a champ, right? But right now, who are contenders at the same time? Rusev, Javon Evans. And there's a couple of more. You
got Ethan Page and Rey Mysterio winning last week's match versus Rusev, guaranteed him a future Intercontinental title shot, which I think we are getting Rey and Penta at SummerSlam, which will be amazing. Yes. But so you've got a lot going on there, and I think it's like you just said, the one-off. And as much as I like Roman Reigns, I am afraid that is where we're going with his title reign.
Is the one-off? Yeah, there has to be.
Even though he beat Fatu twice, I understand he beat Fatu twice. We did it within a month. It's going to be one-off programs. It's not going to be any of these programs where Reigns loses and takes it back.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? But what I would like to see is from now on, I would like to see multiple contenders for the. It's kind of like back during the Attitude Era, right? And yeah, I know we're dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff, but people just hear us out, okay? It's kind of like back in the Attitude Era. Okay, Austin was the champion, but who were always contenders?
You've frozen up there, boss.
Oh, okay, I'm back now. But if you know that everybody that I mentioned, that never changed throughout the Attitude Era. Kurt Angle, Big Show, Triple H, Austin, Rock, Undertaker, Kane, they were always contenders for the WWF Championship, But it just seems like nowadays it's like, okay, Roman's got this feud with this guy for the championship, but no one else back here is fighting for that same spot in case this guy loses. You know what I mean?
Like they're layering it a little bit where like Royce Keys mentions it and LA Knight mentions it, but it's like I don't think anyone sees those guys as true threats right now. I know Keys is a big guy, but I don't think anyone sees LA Knight or Royce Keys as a true threat to Roman Reigns' title.
Yeah, it's not like with Royce Keys, and don't get me wrong, we've seen this work in AEW, but he's a big dude that can be dominant, but he's not seen like Obafemi.
Yep, no, and it's it's one of these things where it's like, why did we just throw a tag title on Breakker? And as much as it was because Paul was injured, it's also because we don't have a spot for Breakker in the main event scene right now.
Not right now. Well, I mean, it's just like Seth Rollins said, he's not ready for the main event right now. That's why I have him winning Royal Rumble next year.
No, and that's why I had him, originally before the injury, that's why I had him losing to CM Punk, because I don't think he was ready.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of world titles and the like, we're going to go on to our main event here, and that is for the World Heavyweight Championship. So Roman Reigns retained against Jacob Fatu. There were actually reports coming out that Fatu was legitimately injured before this match, and the status was in doubt, but he came out, he did the match and everything. Roman Reigns won. Now, at the end, if you notice, MFT was in attendance, and Jacob Fatu looked at him. And when he looked at him, and follow me on this one, okay? We'll see if you agree. If you disagree, it's cool, bro. But he looked at him almost as if, I'm going to depend on you to get me out of this. And this would reunite Fatu with Solo Sikoa. So, your thoughts about that? Because right now, we got Fatu in the bloodline. He has to acknowledge him, and he now has to work for Reigns, But is he going to be looking to Solo Sikoa to get him out of this jam?
Yeah, so I've got a couple different theories, especially with depending what happens in the King of the Ring, down the road here at Night of Champions, whoever walks away with that. But in terms of Fatu, I think he'll fall in line, and so I think there could be two possible conduits, and I think where we're getting because of the Saudi money, and we talked about it last week, I think you're gonna get towards Roman Reigns and The Rock for Mania 43. So I think you've got two guys that could play a conduit. We'll talk about the other guy when we talk about King of the Ring on another show. But it could be Jacob Fatu. And my image in this is at some point Fatu gets fed up and he goes, you know what? I'm calling down the real tribal chief, and it's The Rock. And whether that's The Rock beating Roman at Survivor Series or The Rock beating Roman at Royal Rumble to take the title from him, and then Roman is then chasing going into Mania, because obviously the assumption is, Roman is taking the quote unquote mantle from The Rock at Mania, the throne, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's going to be very similar to when they did Rock and Cena, where CM Punk played that middleman to get the title on The Rock. I think Fatu is going to potentially play that role. And if it's not Fatu, I think it's going to be Roman Reigns' SummerSlam opponent who plays that role. But I think one of those two people are going to play a conduit to where we get to Roman Reigns and The Rock. But I think my issue with the MFTs right now is they literally have no idea what they are doing with them. We've had this whole tease of Tama was going to go with Shinsuke and form a tag team, or at least turn on the MFTs. And now he's back in line all of a sudden with no real explanation as to why he is back in line. And then you've got Tala, who is also in the King of Ring tournament on the other side, and Solo is on one side of the bracket. So how does that work out? And then, yes, you've had this overlap with Fatu ever since he's walked in. But for me personally, if you look at it, Fatu has been, an alpha compared to Solo from day one. Just from his work in the ring, just from his early work on the mic. I putting Fatu back with Solo, I think, is actually now at this point a disservice to his character, because he's not just an incoming character. What I think, like I said, I think Fatu ends up being a conduit. I think the MFT things, maybe they do another Solo Roman angle, but I think actually what's going to happen is Roman's just going to send Fatu after Solo, and Fatu's going to get tired of being Roman's errand boy in a few months. And that's where we'll head with it in terms of Fatu turning into a conduit for The Rock to come back and steal the tribal chief mantle temporarily. But I just don't like how they're throwing the MFTs around into 19 different things, and they really don't just seem to know what to do with them anymore.
I can foresee that even though, but you know what? You bring up an interesting point. You said sort of a conduit that goes towards Rock and Roman Reigns, right? So how about this? And hear me out. Jacob Fatu, when he attacked Roman Reigns, he said, "I'm going to take everything from you." He still, even though he couldn't beat him for the championship, he still can do it if he costs him the championship.
Yeah, 100%. And will be, who do you cost it against? Will it be against the middle person that The Rock then comes in and defeats because secretly Rock is actually pulling Jacob's strings? Or is it actually The Rock that he helps defeat Roman Reigns, and then, like I said, Roman takes it back at Mania? I don't personally think we're getting two Roman and Rock matches. I think it's going to be a CM Punk Cena situation. Someone's going to play the middleman to get the title to The Rock. Yes. But then the Roman is going to take it back from The Rock.
So you're saying The Rock essentially would have two matches left in him. So he wins the championship, but then loses it.
Yeah, but I just don't think he'll be. I don't think we're gonna end Roman and Rock's feud at 1-1. I think that ends 1-0 Roman Reigns. You get one match of that at WrestleMania. You never get that again. But The Rock takes it off of maybe. And this, we'll go ahead and get into it. I think, like you said, Seth Rollins faces Roman at SummerSlam. You could very easily turn Seth heel on Roman by bringing in The Rock. And everybody would believe that Seth would do that because of how much he hates Roman Reigns. And then The Rock, that was actually a trick. I want a match with you, Seth. He beats Seth at Survivor Series. The Rock goes away until WrestleMania, where, he faces Roman Reigns. But I could see Seth being the middleman in that, if that's where they're headed. If there is no The Rock in the picture, there's no chance Seth wins that title at SummerSlam.
The only thing about that is if The Rock beats Seth Rollins for the championship and then goes away, now the World Heavyweight Championship is off television for months.
No, but I think that's, that'll be kind of the angle. Like, I'm the TKO board member. I'm the final boss. I do what the hell I want. I will be at WrestleMania. Find me a challenger.
Interesting. Now, there's only one thing that could work, but there's only one thing with that, and that is you don't want the title off of, because it happened with Brock Lesnar. Remember when he was Universal Champion and he was off TV for months?
But imagine about how much weight those defenses then carried, because everybody wanted to see him to lose. So imagine the nervousness that crowd will be on. It will be the same pins and needles every time Brock came and defended it, because everybody wanted him to lose, and guess what? He just kept winning.
Yeah, no. You're right. It's just the angle that I'm going at here is there's a reason why the phrase says out of sight, out of mind. At that time period, that very time period, because when he popped back up, it's like, oh, shoot, there's the Universal Champion. Well, hopefully he loses so we can see the championship a little bit more. But while he was gone, people just kind of forgot about the Universal Championship. They revered the Intercontinental Championship over the Universal Championship because it was seen more. That's my only thing. I don't want
I think because it's a different character, you'll obviously have it brought up a lot more. And I agree with you. The one thing that they didn't do, obviously they were always setting up contenders, and this guy will get to Brock at the next big pay-per-view because they didn't do small ones. But I think what you're getting where The Rock is a much more vast of a character in terms of personality, in terms of you're not going to forget what he just did. People still can't forget that he came with Travis Scott and left, and that was 3 years ago now. So I think because it is who it is, it's going to be a lot harder where, it's going to be mentioned every week. You're going to have Roman calling him out every week. You're going to have constant mention of it by Michael Cole every week. And I'm sure being The Rock, you'll have vignettes of him, like, in Saudi Arabia. Hey guys, I'm over here with the title. I know you're in Los Angeles with the next pay-per-view, but I won't be there.
Yeah.
But it'd be much different than Brock, because Brock wasn't doing vignettes and stuff. The Rock definitely would. Brock is not into that stuff. He's not a mic guy, which is the other problem with Brock holding the title like that. He's not a mic guy where you can do On Location by The Rock and have that take up 20 minutes of Raw and no one's gonna complain.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he kind of does that now. He appears like twice a year, and it doesn't matter because when he grabs that microphone, everyone's going to tune in.
No, and that's the way you would keep it, at least in the present. But I wouldn't have him defend it multiple times. Maybe once, just to throw the thought out there that it could happen. But I wouldn't have him defend it multiple times.
Yeah. And I mean, him winning the championship would kind of be like his way out. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I think you got to do it at Survivor Series. That way it's a quick, 3.5 month period without the belt you're being defended. And it's not like this 8-month thing if they do it in August, which would be way too early. You don't want the belt off TV for a year. But I think you do it at Survivor Series or even at the Rumble. Quick 2 months, no one's going to be really fretting about that.
Well, also, here's the thing. If you're going to keep the belt off of television for that long of amount of time, you have to do something in the storyline that with the thing with Brock Lesnar, with that example, people didn't mention the Universal Championship. Brock was here, he defended it, then he was gone for 2 to 3 months.
No, and it's something where you have to have, maybe Reigns gets screwed at the Rumble, maybe Reigns gets screwed in a number 1 contenders match, and he doesn't really lock in the match till last minute, with a last-ditch effort. To make it to Mania. But I think it's something where you've got to play into it. Even if it's The Rock himself who comes and screws Reigns out of a Rumble victory, it's got to be done where it's constant in your face that, yes, this is where we're headed, but we're not going to make it easy on Roman to get there.
Yeah, very true. You know what I mean? But where I was going with also was this, is you got to do something in the storyline, like you said. Rock is a TKO board member. He'll exercise that clause. Hey, I'm a TKO board member and I'm the champion. I can do whatever the hell I want. If you keep mentioning it week after week, even though we don't see The Rock or the championship, we don't forget about it. You see what I'm saying? So what you got to do is you got to have, say, Adam Pearce say, like, all right, we're in touch with legal teams right now because we got parameters behind this championship. And I understand that he's a part of TKO, but he can't be doing this. You got to come with different angles each kind of week to keep people tuned.
It's no different than they did with
Brock
in the last couple of weeks, where they kept mentioning the retirement, kept showing the retirement.
Exactly.
That way it was fresh in your mind. It was always in your mind. And then all of a sudden Brock shows up and attacks Oba. And you're like, oh, this is why we kept talking about it.
Yes, exactly. All I was getting at was you can't do what you did last time with Brock Lesnar, because Brock would show up, defend the championship, and then be gone for months, and there would be not even a mention of the championship. You know?
No, and not a mouthpiece, not like I'm going to be the next one to take Brock down. Nothing really.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's what that's where they got to go with this one. But we'll move on to our next one here, and that is our WWE 2026 King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring preview, predicted finals and winners. And I'm going to get to some graphics here. So first, and I'm going to announce all the matches here. So we're going to start with the King of the Ring bracket. As you can see, let me take this logo off here for a second. So as you can see here, you've got a fatal four-way with Penta, Femi, Sikoa, and Hayes. As you can see, the fatal four-ways, you're going to have 2 from Raw, 2 from SmackDown. Then you also got Mysterio, Breaker, Trick Williams, and Damian Priest. On the other end of the bracket, you've got Seth Rollins, Javon Evans, Tama Tonga, and Ricky Saints. And then rounding it out, you got to have Jey Uso, LA Knight. That's going to be interesting. Royce Keys, and Finn Balor. So, John, what is your predictions for the semifinals and the finals?
So I think, like we said, with 7 F5s, there's no way Oba loses. I don't think Brock is coming in to interfere in round 1. So I'm going to go ahead and say Oba does make the semis. I would like to see him face Braun Breaker, but I don't know what we're going to do in terms of hoopla with him and Seth. So I could honestly see it being 4 Raw guys that are in the semifinals. I could see it being Oba, Breaker, Seth, and Jey Uso. And honestly, matchup wise, for where they're going to be at, I could see them pulling that. But then I think you've got either Seth or Oba or Seth versus Breaker in the finals.
You could have a Seth Breaker finals, yes.
Because it really just depends. Like, do you want to have Seth versus Oba, or do you want to save that for later and have Brock ruin Oba versus Braun instead? Let Braun get past Oba with the bullshit, and then Braun faces Seth, and kind of it not only pays off that rivalry, but the winner gets to face who they're both chasing, Roman Reigns.
Yeah, exactly. So and I'm bringing up the graphic here one more time. So your predicted semifinals, who do you have?
I think I'm gonna go with all Raw guys, Rollins, Uso, and Oba and Breaker, and then I'm gonna go with Lesnar cost Oba in round 2, so Breaker makes it to the finals, and I'm gonna go with LA Knight costing Uso, giving Seth Rollins a win. And then you've got Rollins and Breaker in the finals, which actually, I think it could be a clean match depending on Bronson Reed's health.
Yeah, depending on. I'm going to go ahead and give the same. I was going to pick Femi to win it all, but then I remembered something that Femi said, and that is that Femi said at the end of the year, the OTC can get some. But Reigns did bring something up also. He said, let's see Femi get through the summer, and then we'll talk. So it's entirely possible that Oba Femi walks away as King of the Ring. But I'm going to stick with my guns on this one, whether I'm right or wrong. I'm going to stick with my guns until it happens. If I'm wrong, I will concede that. And if I'm right, I'll be right here to tell everybody I told you so. I've got Seth Rollins taking the whole thing because he will be the one to take it off for Reigns at SummerSlam.
No, I'm with you on him taking it. I'm just not with you on him beating Reigns. I think, like I said, if he beats Reigns, it's because of The Rock. I think because of how many years we've went without Reigns beating Rollins, he finally picks it up here during this newfound reign where he's not using help.
Okay. So you have Rollins winning King of the Ring but losing at SummerSlam, And this is Reigns finally getting that monkey off his back and
Yep.
beating
And I
Seth
think,
Rollins.
and I hope we don't keep seeing a repeat of Reigns' opponents, but I think we're going to see a lot of opponents he faced in the previous reign, and just they're going to be, quote unquote, clean victories.
Okay, no problem at all. No problem at all. So we both have Seth winning King of the Ring. Now for the Queen of the Ring bracket. And as you can see here, now this is something that makes no damn sense. You have Liv Morgan as the Women's World Champion, and she's in the first match here. It's her, Becky Lynch. Now, Lynch, after having come off the Intercontinental Championship loss, they threw her a bone and put her in the tournament. Also in that match is going to be Alexa Bliss and then Chelsea Green. Also in the bottom half of the left side, you've got new Women's Intercontinental Champion Sol Ruka, Lyra Valkyria, Charlotte Flair, and Jade Cargill. Now for the right side of the bracket, you've got Roxanne Perez, Io Sky, Julia, and Lash Legend. And then finally rounding out the bracket overall, you've got Bayley, Raquel Rodriguez, JC Jane, and Kiana James. Kiana James was a surprise appearance. So I'm going to go first on this one. And I am going to say that your final four is going to be Cargill. I'm going to say Cargill, Lynch, Io Sky, and Bayley. With the two final matches being Bayley and Io Sky. Oh, excuse me, no. With the finals, I got Io Sky beating Bayley, and then I've got Cargill defeating Lynch, and then Io Sky defeating Cargill to win King of the Ring. What are your thoughts? Who do you got?
I wish they would have put Becky on the other side of this, kind of in that Bayley group, because it's going to be hard to see her take another loss. There'd be basically 3 or 4 matches other than taking the title back off to AJ in terms of PLEs. But I actually think Morgan is going to win that 4-way match, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. I think Cargill wins that bottom match, or maybe Flair, but I'm going to go with Cargill. And then you've got Io. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Io goes all the way to the finals. I think Jane is going to come out of that first round matchup down low, but Io's going to beat her in the semis. And then you've got Cargill and Morgan. And I actually think the Judgment Day is going to help Morgan win the whole thing. And I only say that because since the night after WrestleMania, and I hate to say that, I think this is where they're going with this. I think we're headed for Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley doing a unified title match, unfortunately. They've teased it since the night after WrestleMania. Every time they've passed backstage, Liv has said something along the lines of basically, I'll be seeing you in the ring soon. I don't want to see it, but based on the little hints they've been dropping, now they could just be, keeping us on our toes. But unfortunately, I think Liv is going to win this tournament and either take a bye, which would be typical heel fashion. Hey, I'm just not defending at SummerSlam. Or she's going to ask for title unification.
Now, here's the only thing that I have. This is the only way. First of all, I'm totally against the title unification. We just came out of that, The only way that I can accept it is if they allow Liv Morgan to defend each championship individually. So every single title match can't be both titles on the line.
Now think of the other hints they're dropping, though, on the other side of things with Roman and Cody. And guess what they're doing over there? And guess what those two have done before?
Yeah.
So, and if you look at all the other factors, the last, other than WrestleMania, Saturday's Night Main Event, Backlash, and yesterday Clash in Italy have been 5 to 6 matches tops. You can't have 12 titles if your PLEs are 6 matches.
That is true.
Now this is where you get to the point where the Intercontinental title is more important. The United States Championship is more important because you don't have 2 heavyweight titles. So I think you could see where they're going down the line of complete unification. I think partially that's why the titles are on Damian and R-Truth right now. They don't really have a direction for that division. And I think if you're going to go to smaller PLEs with longer matches, then you need less titles.
Now, the only thing that I have with what you just said is, here's another thought. How about you extend PLEs? What if I told you that right now, the longest running show as far as length of time is WWE SmackDown? SmackDown is set at 3 hours. Raw is like 2.5. PLEs are 2 to 2.5. Saturday Night Main Events like 2. But yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is they I think what they're saying to us, and if you look at what they did at WrestleMania, because it was short matches, but because they had so many matches, they're basically saying we want to have you out of here in the 2.5, 3 hour window. And if you take the commercials out of SmackDown, you're looking at about a 2.25 hour show. So I think that's where they feel their sweet spot is. And for me personally, I think Raw is the best program they have going because I know I'm out in 2.5 hours. And honestly, it's a great program because I know the first segment's 30 minutes. Then I know I'm getting a couple matches and I know I'm getting a 30-minute main event. Mm-hmm. And I think what they did this past weekend with Clash in Italy, where everybody got at least, other than Brock and Oba, who were the exception and we knew was not going to get 20 minutes, everybody got at least 20 minutes. I thought every match was far and away better than what we saw at Mania.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's very fair enough. Now, one more thing before we go into Enter the Vault here is, if you're going towards a title unification to where you're going to have overall one World Heavyweight Championship and for the men's and one World Heavyweight Championship for the women's, right? What do? Do you A, kill the brand extension and have everybody go anywhere officially? Or B, do you make it to where it first was in 2002, where anybody from both shows can challenge for the men's title and anyone from both shows can challenge for the women's title, and the men's and women's champions can float between both shows? Which direction would you go?
Yeah, I think obviously, we know the champions will have to float, but I think the way they're going with all the roster cuts, you could really end the brand, split at this point. You've got Solo showing up on both shows. You got the Usos showing up on both shows. You got a whole lot of overlap with guys showing up on both shows already. Liv shows up on both shows constantly. So I think you could really get rid of it, especially with the roster cuts that you made and the amount of talent you got rid of. You could definitely, especially if SmackDown's 3 hours, and I think SmackDown would benefit from more Raw talent on the show because honestly, it's tough for me to get through that 3 hour SmackDown. It's a tough show to get through.
I've long said that, Punk should go to Friday nights. I've said that, didn't I? I said Punk should go to Friday nights. There was a couple others I said should go to Friday nights, Also, if you're going to kill the brand extension, let me ask you this. Do you still keep a Raw general manager and a SmackDown general manager, or do you have one general manager over both shows?
No, I think you got to move to one, and I think you can, for me, they've teased us both times that Pierce and Aldis might be close to being cleared enough for some sort of physical contact. Put them in the ring. Shit, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah, you kill them. This, in my opinion, this is what you do, and I agree with you. You kill the Raw general manager position and the SmackDown general manager position, and you kill the brand extension, and you make a WWE general manager position. That way, They book for both shows. And they answer directly to Paul Levesque.
I think one of the things that it would do, like I said, I think it just adds prestige to the titles. Even if you only want to do it part-time, I do think you got to find a way to uplift these titles. But because I think what the last count was like 30 people they let go of, because you shrunk the roster that much, your 3 hour show desperately needs help. Like you said, CM Punk needs to get back active on the roster. I know we're getting the SummerSlam season. It's time for him to come back. But I think if you had that where the Bloodline could show up every Friday and every Monday, you're going to have a lot more people tuning in.
Yeah, you would. Absolutely. So, thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us so far. We're getting to our last part of the segment, and that is my man Sean's segment itself. To Enter the Vault, we're going to go back in the day at this time period so many years ago. So, first one is up. Sean, take the floor.
So, first one here, we've got the Shield's high and the Shield's low all within 24 hours. So, on arguably one of the Shield's biggest wins were the Shield's biggest wins versus Triple H, Ric Flair, Randy Orton, Batista in Evolution. And they swept the elimination match. They did not have Ambrose, Reigns, or Rollins get eliminated. To only have the very next night, Plan B, Rollins turns and destroys the Shield. And one of the reasons I brought this up is Roman Reigns. Obviously, we know they had some matches down in developmental, but ever since Seth Rollins turned, Roman Reigns has not defeated Seth Rollins.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because, and I was thinking about this while I was driving to the store the other day. I really don't like how WWE creative sometimes has short-term memory, because I don't know if you remember a few years back, they had a feud, and Roman Reigns for the first time was kind of put as the underdog here, because he told Seth Rollins, because Rollins rubbed in his face, he told Rollins, "I'll never forgive you for what you did to us." But it totally erased the fact that the Shield reunited not once but twice. They reunited one time, and then they reunited one more time before Moxley left the company to go to AEW.
And they I think because of that was around Reigns' cancer story, they kind of felt like it was a feel good part of the moment, and they just left it out of their their lore, as you said. But I think one of the things that they brought up there, and one of the things that, as much as I said, Roman has not defeated Rollins. He had to get disqualified to keep the title the last time they faced. He would not remove the chokehold. He got disqualified on purpose to not lose to Rollins that night. So he's still searching for that win 12 years later.
He is, absolutely. That was another thing that I didn't like neither. Whenever they came out, when Reigns announced his leukemia and that he was stepping away, and then the Shield members came out there and they hugged him, Seth Rollins was in tears. And then later on that night, Rollins and Moxley win the tag team championships, and then Mox turns on him, or Dean Ambrose turns on him. I was like, what? See, that was that down the stretch Vince McMahon bullshit.
No,
which
and that's
was,
one of the
by
things,
the way, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest reason why Ambrose left the company.
Yeah, no, and he said that it was not one of the nights to play on the audience emotions on that night when something very real was going on.
Yeah. And see, people will sit up there and see. Let me tell everybody something here, okay? I'm not sitting here saying that Paul Levesque is devoid of any of his wrongdoings, but you have to admit, down the stretch before he left, Vince McMahon was worse. We had been said it was time for him to go, and it was bullshit like this. Why? The man's, like I said, he's one of the biggest reasons why why he left for AEW. So there you go. But
no, I don't think, and it's one of those things where I know Punk returned, but Moxley is one of those guys, you may never see him again in WWE.
You won't. I don't think you will. He's already spent more time in AEW now than he ever did in WWE. But
yeah, we'll see, because it was very highly reported his contract does come up in 2028, so we'll see. That'll be the last chance, in my opinion, for him to come back.
And then also that'll be the last chance to have an all-Shield WrestleMania main event, which I think would feed families. But anyway, move on to our next one. Sean, you got the floor again.
Yeah, so this is, another faction related, because I believe our co-host who's not here this week is doing factions on his next segment. So I wanted to touch on some factions tonight. So one of the main things that we had never seen in WCW, because Shawn Michaels never jumped, was HBK joining his Click Brothers in the NWO. He finally joins the NWO with Kevin Nash as the leader in WWE after Hall and Hogan had both gone different ways. Hall was fired and Hogan went back to his red and yellow, and Michaels came back, and it looked like we were going to finally get Nash and HBK together in their true prime characters, only to see Nash tear his I can't remember if it was his tricep or something in his leg literally the week later, and the NWO basically fizzled out and never to be again in WWE or anywhere else.
Yeah, this iteration was kind of odd because it also saw the joining of Big Show, so Paul White, a 3-time member of the New World Order,
Booker T
as well. I don't know if Booker T just kind of figured,
who then got super kicked on the night Michaels joined and got celebratedly thrown out of the NWO.
Yeah, that was something. That was a very odd iteration. I mean, I wasn't mad at the members, like Pac was there.
No,
Yeah,
it just it was too forced. Like, okay, we're gonna bring the Giant back, but you already took his name away, and he's not even the Giant anymore because you softened his character so much he's not scary.
He's not scary yet, and it, like, to me, because you got to think, they played it up so much with their return at No Way Out. It's just,
and then
you want to know what I think?
Go ahead.
I think you see where I'm going with this. They played it up so much with the return at No Way Out. You want to know what threw a monkey wrench in their plans? Hogan going back red and yellow. That match at WrestleMania X8, they did not anticipate Hogan to get that much fan reaction. So they were like, well, shit, we got to go back to the red and yellow well. But now what are we going to do about the New World Order? This was our plan, So
yeah,
right,
no, and then it was one of those things too, like Hall lost to Austin, which was not supposedly supposed to happen. Hogan was supposed to lose to The Rock, and this just came out. Nash was doing it was going to be the first ending to WrestleMania where the NWO came out and was going to leave The Rock bloody to end WrestleMania. And all of that got changed, according to Kevin Nash. All of that got changed at the 25th hour. It caused Scott Hall to walk out of the company after his match with Austin. It caused Hogan to go back to the red and yellow, and it left Nash basically hanging with the NWO. But he said basically Vince got, the riot act from Austin, The Rock, other people within the company saying this was not the way to go in terms of putting these guys over. But honestly, they ended up killing what Vince had going, which was the NWO was going to come in and be this huge heel faction, and then you don't let a single NWO member go over at WrestleMania.
Yeah, indeed. Funny how things changing, like, at the last minute. But we'll end this program with our last one from Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, just as AJ Styles has just recently retired, I'm trying to keep him on this segment as much as possible. June 3rd, 2004, AJ Styles became the number one contender to the TNA X Division Championship, which was also the first ever TV show taping of TNA Impact at Universal Studios here in my hometown of Orlando, Florida.
All right. And you talk about a man who not only, is the greatest X Division, champion and contender of all time. You're talking about a foundational member of TNA, a man who built the company, helped build the company in AJ Styles. And then, it's crazy because they had the show at Universal Studios and everything. Who does that sound a lot like? WCW. They had a show at Universal Studios. Every single year they would have spring break down there at Palm Beach.
And if you remember, they started at MGM before they signed Hogan.
They did. They absolutely did. They did. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I know we were a little bit over. Thanks for hanging with us. We're going to be back with you next week with more Top Rope Talk. Be sure to follow us on all of our socials and also on our social media. And for the numbers guy, Sean Russi, I am Denzel Snipes. We will see you next week. Peace!